already added to it. It's also, you know, recyclable, and you can just put it back into nature or use it in other products. And I did want to mention that the finish that has been applied on the floor of the Verico home, we used a low-voc concrete stain finish, so that's always also considered better. When you're looking at finishing your floors, you want to look at what you're putting on top of the floor as well. So recycled carpet is an option that's come out in the last couple of years. Many of your big carpet stores, as well as your big box thank you, as well as your big box retailers now carry a recycled carpet. So recycled carpet is most commonly made from a recycled pop bottle plastic, and it looks and feels like your regular carpet in your house. Some people have problems because it off-gases, but it does keep the plastic out of landfills, and it takes way less energy to produce recycled carpet. There's also a number of companies out there are taking in your carpet roll-ins that you carry out of your house, and they will recycle them and send them back to the manufacturer. So you want to look at what's happening to the material that you're taking out of your house when you do your renovation. I didn't put a point on this, but when you're looking at carpets, there's a couple other things you can consider. Some people like natural wool carpets because they're made from wool as opposed to synthetic materials. They wear a lot better, they don't require any of the toxic cleaning agents, and they're not covered in formaldehyde and stain resistant covers that some of your other carpet is. The problem with wool is if they come from third world countries, you want to make sure that child labor wasn't involved, which can be a problem with some of the rugs you buy from Turkey or Egypt. Wool carpets tend to last a lot longer than your synthetic carpets, so the lifetime value of them is also quite good. Another option for carpet is to go with jute or sisal carpets because those are biodegradable and you can throw them in a landfill after, and it doesn't use any petroleum products to make them. In quite a few of my renovations, I go to, sorry, do you have a question? No. I like to go to either Habitat for Humanity or carpet stores, and I purchase remnants or roll-ends, which is again what we've used for the area rug in the Verico home. And we can take them to a local person and get them bound. Not only is it a fraction of the cost of buying a new area rug, but you're making use of a piece of material that really has no other purpose, and supporting Habitat for Humanity, which is a great cause. Reclaimed hardwoods. So people right now are taking wood from old barns or maybe buildings that are being torn down and repurposing them as hardwood. So if you really want to have your hardwood, that's a good option for that, and we'll show you some examples of that later on. So I just want to talk about paint. Paint contains dozens of different chemicals that are carcinogenic or neurotoxic, and this includes things like toluene, formaldehyde, benzene, as well as fungicides and biocides. So there's a couple different paint companies out there that produce no or low-voc paints. Among the better ones are Benjamin Moore, General Paint, and Pear Paints. My experience lies with Benjamin Moore, so I'm going to take a minute to talk about their paints. Benjamin Moore, the standards for paint right now, the old standards were that you couldn't have more than 250 grams of VOCs, which are your volatile organic compounds, per gallon. It's recently been, it's coming into play that you can't have more than 150 grams of VOCs. Benjamin Moore uses, the most their paint has is 42 grams of VOCs per gallon. Now the other thing that paint manufacturers won't tell you is that the bases are all relatively low VOC. It's the tint that you add to the base that contains most of the VOCs. So you can buy a base that's under 150 grams, and as soon as you turn it bright red or bright blue or purple, you're adding all the toxins to it. So one thing I like about Benjamin Moore is that you can pay a couple dollars extra a gallon to have no VOC tints added to your low VOC bases. Now, if you want, you can also purchase from their Natura line. And those lines, in addition to containing zero VOX, all of the tints contain zero VOX, and it doesn't include the chemicals like your toluene, formaldehyde, benzene, and lots of other ones. So if you're concerned about indoor air quality and pollution, you'll want to go with the better line. Another thing I want to touch on, some people will tell you that after the paint's dry, they're not releasing any VOX. Studies have shown that up to a year later, only 50% of the VOX have been released, and the remaining 50% continue to get released over the course of the paint. Now, Rona has a line of paint, and it's recycled paint. It's about $14 a gallon, which is roughly half of what you'll pay for another gallon of paint. The problem with it, it comes in about 15 colors, so you can't choose any color out there. But the thing I love about it is it encourages places like Sarpan to keep on taking your recycled paint, because there's an end use for it. And recycled paint uses a fraction of the chemicals and a fraction of the energy to produce as new paint. For the people really concerned out there, there's a few other options. I don't have that much experience working with them, but I know suppliers that carry them. And those options are milk paint, which comes from milk, Hempola, which is a hemp-based, and EcoHouse. Quick fact for you, if 1 in 15 new gallons of paint purchased were recycled, the total paint savings would equal 40 million gallons, enough to give every paved road in California a coat of royal blue. The other thing I wanted to briefly mention, houses in the 50s and 60s were quite often painted with lead paint, which is not a problem as long as the paint is staying on your walls and you're not disturbing it. As soon as you're going into an old house and you're working with drywall and plaster and peeling it off, you're going to get lead particles exposed, and that could cause you respiratory as well as other problems. Paint can recycling, I mentioned, takes place at Sarcan, and there's hazardous waste days that take place twice a year, and you can take your stuff like your paint thinners and your strippers and the other things associated with painting to those. The last thing you want to do is pour your paint thinner down the drain, because it really contaminates the water supplies when you do that. Questions on paint? So, what do we know about window coverings? Windows can leak 25% of your home's heat, and they can be responsible for 40% of your home's gain. Another stat, if Americans close, sorry, most of my stats are American because all my books are from the United States. If Americans close their curtains, the energy savings annually would equal the entire energy used for the country of Japan. So that's just closing your blinds at night. Now, a couple things you can do to reduce energy loss through your windows are weather stripping and insulation. So taking off your trim work and making sure that that's filled with spray foam or your pink fiberglass insulation. You can buy insulating shrink wraps that you basically heat shrink onto your windows, and that'll give you a couple degrees of increased R value. One thing you have to watch with some of those is that they completely block out the light. So if you did want to have plants in your house, which plants can be great for indoor air quality issues, an average 1,200 square foot house should have about 13 plants in it. So that's something that you want to consider when shrink wrapping your windows. Replacement of old windows, which there's energy grants out there that help cover the cost of some of that. And then insulated drapes, cellular or honeycomb shades. So I have a west-facing window in my house, and typically in a net zero home you don't want a west-facing window to begin with. Now last winter we couldn't even sit in our front room because of the cold air coming off of the window. This fall I sewed insulated draperies for the windows, and there's a 12-degree temperature difference between placing a thermometer in front of the draperies and behind it. Cellular and honeycomb are shaped in sort of like that, and because of that they trap the heat or the coldness in it and prevent it from penetrating your house, which is why those are a really good option as well. And you want to stay away from plastic blinds. Most of them are made from PVC and vinyl. You can't recycle them, and they contribute to off-gassing. So here's a couple pictures of a home that my husband worked on, and it features all reclaimed wood. So we have reclaimed fir for the staircase and also the bathtub, and we covered that with a type of material used in building ships to prevent water issues. And then all of the floors are made out of reclaimed barnwood. So they were all planed down and tongue and grooved and installed. So I just have a couple pictures to show you, and I'm going to go over some different eco things that I've used in a couple of different homes and what makes them good and things that you can look to do in your own houses. So this picture demonstrates the use of secondhand furniture. The owner of this room had purchased the office desk and the chair secondhand and this lamp and told me to work with it on a very limited budget. So we bought the light in the back for $10 or $15 secondhand. We bought this shelving unit for I think $60 secondhand, and then we bought this solid custom wood bookshelf for $200. I think it retailed. I think they spent $800 on it new. So it shows that you can get, sometimes reclaimed or repurposed stuff works better with your existing stuff because it's easier to fill the look or the time period that it was made, and it's also a more affordable way of decorating a house. So this is an example of an eco couch. So this couch is made from FSC certified lumber. So with FSC certified, they plant between 3 and 10 trees.